It's the year 2000. Nu metal is gaining popularity, and towards the end of the year, Linkin Park dropped Hybrid Theory, which pushed both the band and the genre into the mainstream. For nearly 20 years, Linkin Park maintained this level of popularity, even though the genre that they rode to fame had well and truly fallen out of favour. With Chester passing in 2017, it looked like the band would be over forever, but now we're a few short months away from a new album, which I'm sure we're all curious about. But the story of the band can be found all over the internet. In this video, I want to look at Linkin Park's music and what made it unique. So before we dive into the specific habits of Linkin Park, let's look at some context of the band and the time that they started to see why they might have the sound that they do. Nu metal is an expansive and somewhat experimental genre that is obviously based in metal. I mean, metal is actually in the name. The genre explores other genres like hip-hop, funk, industrial, and grunge. It's actually pretty crazy to look at the bands that are considered nu metal, because they often feel like the only thing that they have in common is that they were popular around the early 2000s. To me, Linkin Park's sound was the perfect cross-pollination of metal and rap, with heavy influences from electronic and pop music at the time. In a way, they feel like they were the perfect antithesis to pop groups like the Backstreet Boys, because their songs were similar in terms of melody, chord progressions, and structure, but were so much darker. This meant that the people who didn't connect with the cheesy late 90s boy groups now had an alternative that was equally as catchy, but spoke to the more complicated emotions that most of us feel. Another factor is that at this time and in this genre, the exploration of modern technologies was really important. Obviously, Linkin Park were taking advantage of synths, samples, and a DJ, which all three of those instruments give practically infinite creative options, but using these in addition to a regular metal band gives you endless creative toys to use for your songwriting. And not only that, but the choice to include these technologies put Linkin Park at the forefront of modern metal. So just keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the video. These songs were designed to be modern, radio-friendly, and speak to the darker side of human experience. And with that out of the way, the first habit that Linkin Park used in their music is emotive writing. To me, I think this is one of the biggest things that caused Linkin Park to get as big as they did. It doesn't really matter whether you pay attention to the lyrics, the vocal performance, or the tonal aspects of the music, they're all cohesive and enhancing whatever emotion the song is about. If we look at One Step Closer, we can see how every element justifies the emotion of the song. Let's start with the chorus, as that's usually the place where we're given specific answers. Everything you say to me. Based on what we've just heard, it's pretty safe to conclude that this dude is just about at his mental limit, and pretty much any external stimulus is quite possibly too much for him to handle. And with that in mind, let's take a quick look at the intro. The way I would describe this is that the riff is spiraling around, a bit uncertain, a bit uncomfortable, and with some sound effects bubbling up here and there like a current underwater. To personify this musical idea, it's like someone who can't stop obsessing about a negative situation and they're just about to lose control. Now let's see what's lurking in the verse. Listen to the vocals and imagine why it might be sang the way that it is. I cannot take this anymore. So we've got a relatively quiet, dry solo vocal. As it's sang quietly, there's a certain amount of intimacy that comes with the performance. To me, this is either a confession or he's talking to himself. Essentially, the only way we could hear this is if Chester was whispering in your ear. And then, if we look at the bridge, this is where he finally breaks. Obviously, it's become too much and he's exploded. So in the intro, there's a riff spiraling around. In the verse, there's an intimate confession of an ugly reality that he wants to hide from the world if he can. The chorus is him firing a warning shot not to push him too far. And then in the bridge, the situation has gotten out of control. Do you think that the way these pieces come together makes sense for someone who's currently fighting these types of demons? I sure do. The thing I really enjoy about Linkin Park is that they often explore many aspects of a single emotion in one song. So in One Step Closer, we've got everything from insecurity and discomfort of the emotions in the verse to totally losing control in the bridge. Everyone feels anger, and everyone who has ever felt anger also understands that anger can be very nuanced. It's rarely an overwhelming anger that is just 100% pure, clean hatred with no impurities. The anger that comes from disappointment feels different to the anger that comes from defeat, which also feels different to the anger that stems from grief. Emotions are complicated, so when you can feel someone else juggling their complicated emotions, it resonates with your experience. To bring this to you, if you want a song that explores emotions like Linkin Park do, Cover everything from small festering thoughts to an outward explosion. You should pay careful attention to the roles each section will play in the overall theme. Where do you want the emotions to climax, and in what way? Which part of the song are you beaten down? Which part of the song can be used for world building? There are no right or wrong answers, so whatever feels right for you is what you should follow. Maybe you feel like Linkin Park nailed it and you should follow a similar idea the way they did. Or maybe you want to work against them and the verse is the explosion, with the bridge being where you give context. Once again, it doesn't matter which way you approach it, but the more you can map it out in your head, like Linkin Park do, the easier it will be to take the listener through a journey that they can connect with. So with that, let's move to habit 2, sound design. A key aspect to Linkin Park is their sound design. By the late 90s, the typical metal sound of 2 guitars, bass, drums, and a singer was starting to fall out of favor. As nu metal was growing in popularity, Linkin Park needed to utilize a wide tonal range to stay competitive. They did this by incorporating keyboards, synths, DJ decks, samples, and rapping into the typical metal sound. So this means that there's essentially no limitations to the sounds that can be made. It all boils down to stylistic decisions. And Numb is a great example of this. Right from the first few seconds, we hear a bunch of sound effects, DJ scratches, synths, and programmed drums. It all feels pretty lo-fi, like it's a bit broken or imperfect in some way. Circling back to habit 1 for a second, this makes sense sonically. If you're numb, you're not exactly feeling bright, energetic, and full of vitality. The guitar feedback leads the band in, accompanied with a new piano melody. The scratching sound effects and main melodies are continued, but some of these elements are hard to hear, but they're definitely there. And when we get to the verse, we get a new dreamy synth that supports the piano chords. For the rest of the song, the instrumentation is mostly the same, just changing as required through the song. And this is all well and good, but why is it important? At the start of habit 1, I mentioned that it doesn't matter which aspect of the song you choose to listen to, everything is working to enhance the mood. That is why the sound design is important. The sound design and tonal options are all pointed towards enhancing the main emotions of the song. Linkin Park are masters of doing one simple thing really well. I feel like lots of their songs create an accurate tone or instrument for an emotion. Whenever they do this, they bypass any needs for tricks or techniques and point straight towards the desired emotion. If they've done their job well, we as listeners feel the emotion first and listen to the chords or melodies later, not the other way around. The brilliance here is that they keep everything really simple to highlight what's important, which the emotion is always the most important thing. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that Linkin Park were the pioneers of bringing electronic music elements into metal, or that they were the only bands doing it. Bands started doing that as soon as the technology was available. But by including these intelligent sound design ideas into their songs, they gave their music new meaning and life. But if you're doing this for yourself, do not go overboard with it. Most of Linkin Park's music uses their electronic instruments as supporting elements only. So with that in mind, let's move on to habit 3, melodies. I think it's pretty clear that one of the most important parts of Linkin Park are their melodies. In fact, I made a short about it. Did you know that 15 of the 20 songs from Linkin Park's Best Of album feature the exact same melodic pattern? Linkin Park write their catchiest melodies, usually using only 2 or 3 notes. And importantly, these notes are usually right next to each other in the scale. For example, the 4th and 5th scale degree are used in One Step Closer and Faint, and the 7th, 1st, and 2nd are used in the End and Bleed It Out. Melodies highlighting the 4th and 5th scale degree are the most popular, followed by those that are based around the 7th and 1st. Melodies built on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, or the 5th and the 6th are the least popular. Chester spends most of his time around the 3rd, 4th, and 5th scale degrees. This is for 2 reasons. The first reason is that those 3 notes can be made to fit nearly any mood you want to go for, whilst keeping your melodies sounding musical and meaningful. Or in other words, those 3 notes are very flexible. The second reason is that limiting yourself to a few notes forces you to sing the shit out of those notes. This means that you will likely force way more emotion into the performance because you can't be distracted by a complicated melody. Another way to think about this is if someone sings a single note with a hell of a lot of emotion, it's going to create more impact than someone singing a complicated melody with no emotion. This is why simple music works. It creates space to bypass your brain and play directly with your emotions. There's no complicated engagement with some abstract melodic phrase. It's just, holy shit, that guy is pissed off and it sounds good. And whilst I've been speaking directly to chorus melodies so far, the verse melodies are built in a similar way. Usually, verse melodies are longer and more complicated, but this is a common pattern that happens through all music. Verses typically have longer melodies with less repetitive lyrics and usually cover a wider range of topics. But once again, connect with the emotion that you're going for. A melody that is about being defeated is more likely to descend. A melody about triumph is more likely to rise up, as if fighting against the thing you need to be triumphant over. All you need to do is opt for the simple option that amplifies the emotion you're going for. Now, this video wouldn't be complete without looking at the other important melodic idea that is featured in most Linkin Park songs. In the end, Numb, Faint, Paper Cut, Breaking the Habit, and many other songs all feature a repeating instrumental melody that plays through most of the song. Within the end, there's the main piano theme. It happens at the start and reappears again and again throughout the song. For Numb, it's the same thing as it is for New Divide. If we take a simple melodic idea and play it over different chords in different contexts, it starts to become a texture to enhance the mood, like this. Because the melodies don't change, the chords and music that changes underneath it starts to grind against the melodies. The result is that whilst the melody feels familiar and feels like it belongs, there's something uncomfortable or imperfect about it. But if we think about the theme for the day, this is probably because that discomfort creates a certain amount of emotional movement that Linkin Park wants. With all that said, let's recap and let you get creative. Linkin Park used many songwriting tricks from many genres, but the most important aspects are that their songs are full of emotion, they use emotive sound design, and they write simple melodies. When writing a Linkin Park song, start with an emotion that you're trying to bring to life and explore it through many different lenses within the one song. Let the exploration of emotion guide you and let the other elements of the song be simple, so long as they lean into that emotion. Soon enough, I'll be doing a video on nu metal, which I'll leave here when it's online. But for now, check my video on metalcore, which I feel in many ways succeeded nu metal as the dominant metal genre. Let me know what bands or genres you'd like me to do next in the comments below. See you next time.